In today's episode of HR Visionaries, we talk to Rob from PTO Exchange. We talk about how important open communication is towards employees and stakeholders. Stay tuned. Welcome to HR Visionaries, where we unlock the secrets of modern HR. I'm Benjamin, your host. Join us as we shed light on today's HR universe with HR leaders and innovators from across the globe. Whether you're an HR pro, a business leader, or just curious about the future of work, this is your shortcut to the forefront of HR innovation. Brought to you by Hire, the AI talent attraction platform. Welcome to the latest episode of HR Visionaries. I'm looking forward to my guest today, Rob. It's a pleasure to have you.
Really appreciate being on, Ben. Look forward for the conversation.
Me too. Rob, can you tell us a bit about yourself? Who are you? What have you done so far in your life?
Just an entrepreneur, educated in accounting, and have built 3 or 4 businesses. The one I'm working on right now is the one I'm most excited about, and have it's around taking paid time off and exchanging it for good services and experiences. Started the company 10 years ago, really just around my dinner table with a couple of other entrepreneurs when we were discussing big ideas, and then started it in 2013, just thinking that it was a big opportunity, and it is, and so we've been building it ever since. A little bit more complex than we initially thought, the HR business, but that has been something that I think we've been able to work through, and now we have incredible clients, incredible solution, and we're seeing the benefits that we're bringing to the workforce, which is, to me, very rewarding.
Well, you just mentioned, okay, you sat at the dinner table and developed this idea. That sounds a bit like, it almost sounds a bit like a made-up story, right? But how did you come up with the idea?
So the whole idea was, and I thought about this for a long time, about 2 years prior to it happening, which is, I have all these friends that are entrepreneurs or executives, and some of them are just neighbors of mine, and they're software engineers, they're executives at companies like Expedia, they were senior VPs at Expedia, and just a bunch of us that have built companies. And so the idea was really to just buy steak and red wine and just have a conversation around big ideas. And so there was 14 of us, I think, at the time, all at my house, and we just started to converse on ideas. And the whole premise of it was, you could bring an idea and get it vetted, and then, or you could, any of the ideas there, we would, anything that was worthwhile, we would all see who wanted to get involved in it if it was worthwhile. This one, there was 2 of us there. A friend of mine by the name of Greg, he actually and I worked at Cisco together, and we both left at Cisco, and we both got a very large paycheck on our way out the door. And as we were kind of chatting about that, he stated, wouldn't it be cool if we could have used that money to go on a vacation that, with our families, that maybe we wouldn't have been able to afford, or and that was kind of the light bulb moment, because my friend from Expedia said, boy, that's really a great idea, because you could use the money to spend at Expedia. And that was kind of the gist of it. After that, after dinner, I started to noodle on the idea. And for me, it was, is the idea big enough, right? Is it a big enough idea? And I started to just do the math around how much paid time off was accrued on the books. And I just started to look at the numbers, and it was a very, very, very large number, thinking that, what if you could take that money and be able to direct it to, at the end, it's good services and experiences, right? So, but take it and put it in your 401k, or take it and put it into your HSA, or use it for a vacation you may not have been able to afford, or pay down student loans, those types of things. And then we started to really look at it. And at the time, the Travel Association was also starting to look at it. And so we started to work with the Travel Association, and they started this project Time Off. This is way back in 2014. I don't even think this exists anymore. And we're the ones who gave them the numbers that I created on just how much money and time is lost and not being used, and that money could be utilized to fund an experience called travel. And that was kind of the, inception of the idea, and then the company. And then we realized that PTO was a very unique thing, more unique than we wanted it to be. And we had to really understand the regulations and the compliance nature of it, not just federally, but in all 50 states. And then one of my partners, Rob here, who had spent years in this space, I hooked up with and didn't even know he was in the space. And then he started to say, no, you can't do that. And this is how you have to do it. And so then we started to develop the product so that it would be compliant in all 50 states. And 2015, him and I went back to Congress, spoke to the Joint Committee for Taxation about laws that had unintended consequences to employees. And it just kind of spun from there. Launched the product in 2017. So from 2013 to 2017, we were working other jobs, doing this at nighttime, really grinding it out. And in 2017, we raised some money to do it, and by a firm, West River Group here locally, and allowed us to really jump in and go after the market. And since then, we've been growing very nicely from a company standpoint.
Well, have you had any experience in HR prior to this?
No, and what I think is interesting to that question, Ben, is that I think, and I did this in other industries, I think never being in it, I didn't have any perceived notion of how it should work. I just had the perceived notion of, from a financial standpoint, that a company is accruing this liability, it's an earned wage, and an employee should be able to access that wage or that earned value. And for me, I started to look at it from the time value of money, from a CFO standpoint, saying, and when I roll this PTO over from year to year, it increases. Mm-hmm. So you made $50,000 this year, you accrued 3 weeks, you're able to accrue up to 2 times your annual, so that's 6 weeks. You roll that over and now you make 65,000. So now that those 3 weeks that I accrued at 50,000, I have to pay out at 65,000. And from a CFO, that's an increased cost, and it's not very good for the company, nor is it good for the employee when an employee could use that asset and be able to support them, and whether it be for retirement, whether it be for their health care, whether it be for elder care, child care, any number of the things. So that's how I came about it. And so I think not being in HR was actually a benefit to me. And I think a lot of people that solve big problems were never in it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think you look at you look at Elon Musk and PayPal way back when. He just wanted to transfer money via an email. Okay. Yeah. He knew nothing about banking. He absolutely knew nothing about banking. He was a technology guy. So I think trying to make solutions common sense usually stemmed from people outside the industry, where you don't have these perceived conceptions of how it has to work, because that's the way it's always worked.
Exactly right. Okay. So that's where innovation comes from, right? So to look at things from a different perspective, so to
apply solutions from other areas in an area that where this solution can bring incredible value.
Yes. Yep. Exactly. And as we've educated ourselves along the path of building the company and the vision, we've seen workforces change, right? The gig economy has changed, and just the whole pandemic, now it's a work from home. So we've seen the augmentation of employer relationships, and we believe that benefits should be changing along with that. You can't have the same benefits. The other thing you see is the multi-generational workforces today. Today you have more generations in the workforce than ever. And each one of those generations has different needs because of where they're at in their station in life. And so, as you probably know, being in the HR world, there are so many new benefits, whether it be for, could be for trying to get pregnant. It could be trying to manage your elderly parents. It could be student loan. It could be, and you also see this happening in Congress, right? The Secure 2.0 law that just came out. That was really to address the fact that the Gen Zs and millennials can't pay down their student loans, right? And so because they don't make enough, and then to invest in 401k at the same time. And, Secure 2.0 is a great law to solve a problem. I don't think the law is perfect by any stretch, okay? But the intent was there. And I think as you see, laws changing to support a more, a workforce that is different than it was yesterday. Ones that you don't work for a company for 10 years anymore, you work for 2. And so I think benefits need to change. And we at PTO Exchange believe that benefits will become more flexible, more portable, and more like owned. It's an owned asset to the employee or to the workforce, so that they have more control over it. No different than kind of the evolution of pensions going to 401ks. Pensions are kind of gone because of the way they're structured in a 3-legged modality, whereas the debtors of the company have access to the pension to pay that down. And what was occurring was, obviously pensions were kind of going away and companies didn't want the liability. But the other thing that was happening was leveraged buyouts, where companies could come in with debt, buy the company, and have the pension pay that debt back, and then sell the assets of the company. In '84, Reagan signed what Ted Bennett had created, the 401k, to individualize retirement and really make retirement as a whole to the person, right? It's not tied to the company, it's tied to the person. So now 401k or my retirement goes wherever I go, and a company can't take it away from me. And I think the same thing is happening to benefits. Okay, whereas they're going to be disengaging from the company, and that's a good thing, and they're going to be held and owned by the individual who receives them, because they're total rewards. I don't think people really understand that your benefits are 31% of your total compensation. And in essence, a lot of those benefits are not used at a high enough level. Okay. Anyhow, so that's my story. what we're trying to accomplish, and where I think it's kind of going.
So the entire the change in the labor market, so in the structure of the labor market, turning from people staying at companies for very long to now the new extreme, the gig economy. So perhaps you're self-employed or you work for several companies, several jobs. How do you think this will change over the next few years?
I mean, I think it's going to evolve. So it's not, benefits don't radically change.
Mhm.
I mean, I've been doing this 10 years now, and we're still fairly a young company in its adoption to the workforce. I think 401k is still being adopted, and that's been out for a long, long time.
Mhm.
So evolution is going to occur, and it's going to occur slowly, although technology changes very quickly.
Mhm.
And I think that with the stem of AI, I think jobs are going to change.
Mhm.
I think the types of jobs are going to change. And um, I think companies will start to focus on what they're good at and what they're not good at. And frankly, they're not very good at benefits.
Mhm.
They're just not. And so if a company could outsource their benefits, if they could get it off the books of their company and expense it, um, I think that's where things will start to move. Um, I think it can really benefit the gig economy. I think this evolution of benefits becoming more portable can support a current non-supported workforce where people are trying to support that workforce, and our lawmakers are trying to create laws to support them. But the reality is our lawmakers don't understand technology. They don't understand innovation. They'll create a law that really does not meet the needs of the worker and or the employer. We see that locally here in Seattle, where they were trying to, they put in a law that stated that the DoorDash people, who, they had to have a minimum wage, which meant that DoorDash had to increase the fee for delivery, which then decreased the customers, right? They weren't willing to pay $25 for a cheeseburger at McDonald's just to get it at their apartment.
Yeah.
And then the workforce now doesn't have any work because the law has killed it.
Mhm.
And they're complaining to tell the city council to get rid of the law. So the intent was good. The
Yeah.
intent was there. The way it was built was, they would never be able to think of the way it should be built. And that's just the way it works sometimes.
Indeed. And well, and I think that that's a super interesting or super important point you just raised. So like good intent versus good outcome. So which is I think also super important for many people in the HR world. So when you implement new policies and you implement new benefits, well, it's the intent or the outcome. So how do you think HR people should approach this to make sure it's not the good intent that counts, it's the good outcome that you achieve?
Yeah, I think HR people or executives, their job is to have a great, healthy workforce,
Mhm.
to build products, to deliver revenue. I think what HR, a lot of them don't understand is just the financial accounting around all of these things, right? They really report up to the CFO. It's very rare that the HR person reports up to the CEO.
Mhm.
And if they do, they're dotted line over to the CFO because your workforce is 70% of your cost.
Mhm.
Okay. And, that's something that a CFO really needs to understand from getting a company to profitability, and also to protect the fiduciary responsibility of the board and the executives. So,
So,
it's a reason why it's a win-win solution for companies that go to unlimited PTO or non-accrued or flex time, because the CFO loves it because they just wiped it off their books. It's no longer a liability.
Mhm.
It absolutely is no longer a liability. And the data says that your people will take less time, so you'll get more productivity out of it. And it's being sold as a win-win solution to the employees because you can take all the time off you want, but it's not true. That's really telling your employees a lie, and that's really unfair. But from a business standpoint, it's a great move. I mean, from a financial standpoint, it's a great move. If CFOs could do that in the healthcare space, and if Boeing could do it, they would do it, but they can't because you can't have unlimited PTO at Boeing because you got to go in and build a plane. You can't do it in healthcare because you actually got to have a nurse there at your bedside or a doctor there, or, anesthesiologist coming in. So you look at these and that's a win-win solution only for the HR and the CFO.
So you just mentioned the importance of healthy organizations. So what do you think constitutes a healthy organization?
I think a healthy organization is a set of employees that are both physically healthy, financially healthy, mentally healthy, and socially healthy. And I think those four things are achieved. A lot of those things are achieved through your benefit package. Okay. And I think if you look at the total utilization of your benefits, including PTO, your healthcare, your 401k, and look at the adoption rate. And if you had 100% adoption in all those benefits, to me, you would have an incredible, healthy organization. But if you don't, and you have 25% engagement on your benefits, to me, that's a 25% healthy employee base. And we've seen this. We've seen this in our product. And I'll give you an example. A lot of people worry that, I want people to take time off. And that we agree that's important. I don't want them to spend their time just cashing their PTO out and then continuing to work. But I think what people don't understand is when you think of those four pillars of health, each one of them is not greater than the other, by the way. So they are all equally important. So if you let's just take financially healthy. And I'm a worker that lives paycheck to paycheck. And I have an emergency. But instead of, I need a $400 and I have $3,000 sitting in my paid time off that I can't access. So instead, I'll go get a credit card, I'll go get a loan, I'll go get, unearned wage access. Okay. And those three things aren't very healthy from a financial health standpoint. And the reason being is you go get a loan, you're going to have to pay it off. Now you got more debt.
High interest.
Right? High interest. Okay. Credit cards, earned wage access. You've now just dipped into your future cash flow. Okay. So being able to access this PTO that you've already accrued, that you've earned, and pay that creates a financially healthier person. And if you have a person who is more financially healthy, they're less stressed. Sometimes taking time off when you're living paycheck to paycheck and you can't afford a vacation, you can't afford an experience. So what do? You go home, you spend the week at home worrying about how it looks to your employer that you're taking a vacation and worrying that, you might get fired downstream, right? These people are worried that they're going to get let go during a downturn. And what are they going to do? So sometimes taking time away from work is not necessarily the best thing, right? Sometimes it is, and it is important. Don't get me wrong, We believe in it. We built a lot of capabilities in our product to be able to make sure that people do. But at the end of the day, you need to look at those 4 pillars. And if you have flexible benefits, you have an employee who can choose to self-serve those pillars as they need them to create their own healthiness and to create sustainability. And that's how I look at the health of the workforce.
How do you approach this yourself in your own organization?
So we use our own product here. We allow people to take 24 hours of their paid time off and be able to cash it out, exchange it, give it to nonprofits. And then we also make sure that people disengage, okay? Whether it be a long weekend. And, you know, we're a small organization, so it's pretty easy for me because I kind of touch everyone. But, you know, in a larger organization, that's really what managers need to do. Check in to make sure that their workforce, and that's kind of that social healthiness within a company. And it's more difficult to do today with the, you know, workforce being kind of work from home type, because you don't really get to engage with people as intimately as you would in the office. But I think, you know, for us here, we use our own product. We make sure people disengage. We make sure that, you know, they're healthy, that they're out taking walks and doing things even during work. So that's kind of how we approach it. Now, as we get bigger, I think that's going to be more challenging. And I think it's going to have to be based in the culture and the managers that manage people.
It's very interesting, given well, as you said, so like listening to people and really understanding what worries people and what something that would, well, or not worrying or bothers them. So it's so important that you as a manager know this.
Yeah, I'll give you a real example that's going on here in the office. So there's several of us that have parents that are elderly, that are in, you know, they're 84, 85, dementia, you know, and needing a lot of assistance, memory care. You know, having to leave work to be able to go and support those people, as well as if you have children. You know, we have several people here that have young children. You know, those are the worries that you have to support for your employees. Now, that being said, there still needs to be productivity. There still needs to be, you know, that give and take. But that's where work can be done at night and things like that. So if I need to take time off during the day, I can make that up in the night to make sure I'm making my KPIs and things like that.
Talking of KPIs, what are the important KPI for you looking at organizational health?
Well, as a small company, we run numbers. We're looking to get profitable, right? So we have goals to meet our revenue. We have goals to manage our expenses. We have goals for our product releases that are going to drive future revenue. And we manage those on a weekly basis. And so every week I have a deck that everyone updates, and it's really a data dump, right? So I get all the intricacies of the data of the company and all of the companies that are on our platform and all of the employees that are on our platform. So I look at the data every week. Every 2 weeks, we as a company get together and review every piece of that data. And so everyone knows the health of the organization. Everyone knows what our revenue is. Everyone knows what our expenses are. Everyone knows the customer engagement that's going on on our platform within the organization, and or the problems that we're, you know, not every customer is perfect. the issues that we're running up against for implementation, or product builds, things like this. So we have, again, you can do this as a small organization, which we are, but it's, for me, I keep everyone on the same page by having transparency from me all the way down. And everyone knows their KPIs, like everyone knows their deliverables. And we all try to work to get and achieve those. We'll slip. We will slip just like others. And we know that, but you have to measure stuff. Okay. You have to, we'll set out a date for a build and we might miss it, but we measure it along the way so that we get better and better and better at saying, we think we're going to be here in 6 months and we'll be closer than we were last year because we continuously measure along the way.
When did you start that strategy of, let's say, total transparency, for lack of a better word?
Well, I'll tell you what, when we started it, because we started it when the company wasn't doing so well and our board was expecting a lot of data on a very regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And as aggravating that is, as the CEO and trying to run a company, it's also necessary for the board to have real-time data,
Mm-hmm.
And to understand where you're at. But for me, I wanted to be able to have a board deck with all the data every single week, so that if a board member came to me, said, hey, I'd like to know this, I didn't have to do anything. It was already created. I could just give them the whole deck, and that whole deck shared with them everything about the business. And so I did it almost for self-preservation, because I didn't want to have to continuously build all the data in the deck and the information. So we just adopted it as our team meeting and saying, this is the team meeting. This is what we do every week. We all stop, spend 1 hour, log everything, put it down. And what it started to do is everyone started to go, wow, this is really cool. Sometimes it's monotony, being that we're reviewing the same stuff over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
But when you do that with information, you start to understand when a customer is off, because you've been looking at the same customer and they're growing 2% every month or 3% every month. All of a sudden they stop and you go, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that because of my own preservation, but now it has become just adopted into the company as a way of managing our business.
Mm-hmm.
And our business is managed from me down to the lowest link in the company. And everyone knows, and everyone has access to the data. Okay, like I said, we only have a team meeting every other week now. We used to do it every week, but we update it every week. And so if you are in sales and you like, shit, I want to go look at what the data was last week on this, you can go in and look at that information. I want to see what engineering was doing last week. You can go in and see. You don't have to bother the engineering team. And so it's a way for everyone to get the information. But for me, when the board says, hey, I want this information, I have the information and it's up to date. It's no more than a week old. I mean, that's a great way to run the business. And by doing that, I have a great relationship with the board. Businesses always are ups and downs, but I think all they're looking for is transparency in the data and where you're at. And I think that's what this gives them. And it gives the whole team that same transparency.
Well, I think it's a super interesting strategy, and it probably comes with its own challenges, given, sometimes things are not going as amazing as sometimes as some other times, right? So it needs to do a bit of explaining then.
Even in the bad times, the business is the business. I mean, you can't get emotional about the business. You just have to solve problems every day. And so whatever's going on, if the business is in a downturn, you need to be able to understand that and try and solve that problem on what is it that you need to do to get out of it. And I think that's not just done by me, right? The board helps me do that. They suggest, right? These are well-experienced executives. And so we leverage each other. Now, they don't know everything about the business because I'm in it every day, but kind of like that solving this problem and I wasn't in HR, they have a lot of other experiences that they share with me that are outside, but that are similar in nature in the model. And so they can help me through that. But being an entrepreneur and running a business and starting a business, it's about finding a problem, solving the problem, finding a way to build value around it, and then continuing to build that and continuing to solve a problem one after the other.
I really like that spirit, and it's probably a great last sentence indeed. So to continuously work on problems and solve problems, which is the life of an entrepreneur, and well, obviously life of so many people out there on a continuous basis.
Yeah, it is. But we're doing well, and we're growing, and we're continuing to innovate, and we're making a difference in companies' employees' lives. We ran the numbers, and people who use our product, and they're not just our product, but benefits, are like 50% less to turn over.
Wow.
Okay. So that's why I stated the health of your organization is determined by the percentage of the utilization of their benefits. And so if you can say that 30% of our total dollars in this investment called benefits is being used, that's the health of your organization. That's the way I look at it. And that's kind of what we've seen. We've seen where in a very large healthcare system, someone who uses PTO Exchange is 50% less likely to turn over or to leave the organization than someone who did not use our platform.
Rob, thank you so much for your time. It was super interesting to learn about your story. Sometimes I still hear that you have an accounting background from what you say. So it's super exciting talking about stuff that firsthand appears a bit nitty-gritty accounting stuff, but has a real impact on people. It's super cool. Thanks a lot.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ben.
Thanks a lot also, guys, for listening in, and see you next time.